I'm full of theories. You may be tempted to replace the word theories with a different word, but I'm in control here, so I'm going to present one of my theories, and you can determine for yourself whether or not I'm full of theory. To me, the primary source of student-teacher conflict about poetry in the classroom stems from a shared inability to name our thoughts about poems. We tend to assume that our thought about a poem is called interpretation. And often, what we do when we read a poem is interpret it. We find in a poem an idea we like. We envision the imagery the poet describes by using our little warehouses of visual experience. We translate the metaphors we recognize into the details of our own experience. We take away from the poem an insight into something we can acknowledge as a truth, be it the beauty of a field of daffodils, the horrors of war, or the confusing bliss of love. But sometimes a nameable meaning eludes us. Sometimes we're not in the mood to intellectualize about a poem. Sometimes a word or phrase or image in a poem animates a moment that is preoccupying us, whether we're conscious of it or not. You might be reading Wisława Szymborska's Cat in an Empty Apartment, and the image of footsteps on the stairs takes you to the moment last night when your sister came home from college, and you start to think about your sister instead of the loneliness of all that gets left behind when a person dies. One of two things is going to happen now if you think about what you are supposed to be doing with a poem. One, you'll push your thought of your sister out of your mind because that's not what the poem is about. Or two, you'll turn your thoughts about your sister into your interpretation of the poem. Then, when the teacher says you misread the poem, you'll get defensive and use some variant of the "I'm a beautiful, unique snowflake" argument to justify why your interpretation of the poem is correct, why you hate your teacher, and why you hate poetry. But if you knew that there's a name for your thought about your sister, inspiration, then you'd feel comfortable with your thought from the get-go. You'd begin writing about the poem with something like, while Cat in an Empty Apartment may be about something else, the image of footsteps on the stairs makes me think about my sister. And now you'd be able to take the gift that our mutual friend Wisława gave you, the opportunity to live in the moment of love for your family, and you'd be able to roll around in it like a gleeful pig in a pool of slop. So my theory leads me to a conclusion. If we know which thoughts to call interpretation and which to call inspiration, we can have a much more productive interaction with poems. We can like things simply because we like them. We can free ourselves to notice without the pressure to name. So the next challenge is this. Find a poem that you like, but you can't interpret. Notice all of the things that you like about the poem, and then write what you notice.